A recent Freedom of Information Act request to the FBI has come back and recently been published all over the internet. You'll find a copy of that file up on MikeCan.net. I will provide a link at the bottom of this video on YouTube. You can see it in the video description and read the file for yourself. The file contains a great deal of information on the FBI's surveillance of the Occupy Wall Street movement, and specifically certain events and in certain cities. It really gets into some of the activities that the FBI were involved in. Joint terrorism task force meetings related to the Occupy movement in various cities all across America. There was also the Day of Rage on the West Coast that they were covering and meeting about. A lot of information in there. You can read it for yourself. I definitely urge everyone to read the file. Unfortunately, a lot of the information, as the government often does, was blacked out, so we can't read the names of many of the people who were involved in this. Some of the people who were giving information to the FBI, they cover up the names so that we can't see them. They call it protecting national security, which is kind of a joke in almost all instances. I feel it's more about the FBI not wanting to allow certain information to be in the public realm. And what you see on this file, the most kind of outlandish, the most outlandish statements and the most concerning statements was one specific file among this larger file, one page really. And what the page talks about is that the FBI had met with somebody, interviewed them apparently, and it doesn't list the person's name or the group that they were associated with. It could be a group or organization within the U.S. government. It could be CIA. It could be actually a rogue FBI office, or maybe not so rogue, maybe just the FBI themselves. But it could be a number of groups. It also could be private individuals, corporations, maybe military contractors. Could be so many different people. Which is really concerning because we probably won't find out. The FBI has blacked out this name of the person who's given the information to them. But what this person said is that they were prepared and they were planning to hire a team with long-scope rifles, long-range rifles, to assassinate, to kill leaders of the Occupy Wall Street movement. They were prepared. They were researching, trying to find out who the leaders of the Occupy Wall Street movement were, and they were prepared to carry out assassination to stop the Occupy Wall Street movement, to actually shoot people, to kill people in public. This is what was said to the FBI. What is really concerning about all this is that we never heard about it. In the age of terrorism and mass shootings, it's shocking to me that the FBI would, number one, cover up the name, number two, never make any statements about it, number three, never contact the Occupy Wall Street members or the organization or the websites to give them a warning that this could happen, that there has been a threat against their group, like they would. I mean, if this happened at the school down the street, if there was a threat to that school publicly, that someone was looking to hire guns to shoot up people, we all know that the FBI would put out a report. They would put out a report through the media to warn everyone. They would shut down that school. They would contact the school officials. They would send in bomb teams. They would send in protection. This wasn't done for the Occupy Wall Street movement. There was no, I didn't see that the FBI was publicly offering protection, or anybody in the federal government was offering the Occupy Wall Street group protection, or the local city police offering protection. I didn't see that at all. And with this report coming to coming to surface, it's just so amazing that the FBI, and maybe not so amazing knowing the history of the FBI, but for the average person that doesn't know, I think you should know that the FBI doesn't protect all of its citizens. If they don't agree with you, apparently they didn't agree with the Occupy Wall Street movement, and they were part of a larger group, it seems, in the establishment of the U.S. government, the terrorism group, what do we call them? The task force, the Joint Terrorism Task Force. They looked at Occupy Wall Street as a terrorist group. Is that I think it's safe to say that because they had many meetings about the Occupy Wall Street movement. And if they didn't consider them a terrorist, why was the Joint Terrorism Task Force meeting about them? This is really disgusting, concerning, upsetting, and it just goes to show how powerful the Occupy Wall Street movement really was when the federal government was meeting so often about them, when the federal government, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, discovered a plot to assassinate leaders of the Occupy Wall Street movement, and they did nothing. They didn't warn anybody within the Occupy Wall Street movement, as far as I know. They didn't offer any protection, as far as I can tell, and they didn't seem to follow up with an investigation or an indictment or any charges against the people who made these statements. That is just goes to show you that the federal government does decide who to charge based on politics. This has been going on for years and years, decades and decades. We've seen it with many friends and people that we support, like Marc Emery, who's still in federal jail for selling seeds, a supposed so-called crime that many hundreds of people have committed, mailing seeds to customers in the United States. Nobody, as far as I can tell, has ever been put in federal jail for it. Certainly not for five years with no parole. These are the things that the federal government continues to do to people that they don't agree with, people that are political agitators, as they're called, people who don't agree with the mainstream consensus that's been propagandized through corporate sources, corporate television, corporate media, through the major party Democrat and Republican leaders in Washington, D.C., and the Fortune 500 corporations, and the Federal Reserve banking system, and all the banks that are associated with it that support this system. Anybody who speaks out like a Barrett Brown is found to have federal charges later. You can offer to assassinate private citizens doing good work in their local cities, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation will do nothing, say nothing, repeat nothing, offer no support to the people who have been targeted for assassination. This is the current status quo in America. If you don't believe it, read the document that I have posted on mycan.net and then comment. Tell me why I'm wrong. What am I missing if you don't agree? Because too often people will vote a video thumbs down and they won't leave any comment. They won't tell us why. And that's cheap. Tell us why. If you're voting this video down, we want to know why. We want to know what you don't agree with. Because I don't find this to be conspiracy theory. I find this to be conspiracy fact. There was a plot against Occupy Wall Street. The federal government knew about it and did nothing. That is a conspiracy. And that's a conspiracy among the government, and it's something that should be ferreted out. I also, I just also want to give it up to Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Boston, Occupy your city. If you were involved in that movement, you should be proud. You should know that the federal government was so concerned about your movement that they had meetings about a peaceful. They admitted, if you read the files, in many of the files that are listed under this Freedom of Information Act that the FBI posted, you will find that oftentimes the federal officials admitted that this was a peaceful movement, that it was mostly peaceful, and that they didn't find that the average person involved in the Occupy movement was any type of violent criminal, a terrorist. They found them to be peaceful. Yet they still met about their movement. They still had meetings. They still plotted on ways that they could break it up, that they could sabotage it. And ultimately, I think that the federal government, with the FBI and the local police, did break up this movement in many respects, especially from the Occupy settlements. They moved people off the land, city after city, and I think that was definitely instigated by the Federal Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So you should be proud if you're part of the Occupy movement, and you still are, because it still goes on. I work with the Occupy movement more today than I did in the past, more so than ever, and I'm proud to say I support this movement, and I just think that people should really wake up and realize that political activism, real political action against this country comes with great risk, and those who are taking those risks, you should support them with every ounce of your being. Maybe you can't be on the front lines. Maybe you can't give up your job or your livelihood or your career or your family or your safety or your housing, but others are. And if you support that, you should be up in arms about this FBI Freedom of Information file. You should be sending money, any money that you have that's extra. If you're looking for a good cause, Occupy Wall Street is a great cause. Independent media like I do, or Mike Can, that is a good cause. Two Hotheads, where activism happens on unregular radio. These are the types of things that you should support. Occupy Boston Radio, OBRFM.FM. Check them out. There are so many. Occupy Sandy, Occupy Homes, the Jubilee, the Occupy Wall Street Jubilee, the Audit the Fed, End the Fed, all that. There's so much activism out there. Look for it, support it, get involved. And I'm going to give you this too. Don't just go and find the biggest group that's out there, because too often those groups have more money than they need, and they're funded by dark sources. You should really go out and support the people who are doing it in your backyard. And I would say the Occupy Wall Street is part of that. There is no leaders. That was one of the best things about this whole Freedom of Information Act that came out. The people who had plotted to kill leaders of Occupy Wall Street were stifled because there were no leaders. That is actually one of the best things about Occupy Wall Street in some respects. It's sometimes the worst, because oftentimes there's not one person to speak out and give the true party line on something. But that is often a good thing, because it leads to real change, real bottom to top change, which we desperately need in this country. And that is what I suggest that you always support. Support the bottom up, especially in regards to politics and activism. Support the local candidates. Get involved in the local activism and politics that is going on in your backyard, in other people's backyards as well. If you see a good candidate running for state senate, state rep, city council, in any city in America, you should be supporting that 100%. If they are saying the things that need to be said that you agree with about the banking situation, about the political monopoly of this country, about who actually owns, about things like this Freedom of Information Act.